Good morning. I feel like in addition to being a lay or having a lay leader, we should also have someone, okay, who should whistle. Good morning. Woo! Okay, we're energized after the dinner last night. Welcome to Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. There's a little. Whoever you are, and wherever you come from, well, that's better, thank you. For this time, we here are one gathered congregation, and all are welcome. Please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our musical call to worship, Morning Has Come, hymn number 1000 in our teal hymnal. Okay, good morning again. My name is Erin Dolan, and I use she, her pronouns. During the 3 years that my daughter and I have attended KUF, I've been involved in multiple committees, but I've managed to pare it down to 2. I'm very excited about that. The Faith Formation Team and then Soulful Connections, which you also can be a part of. See me after the service. For our members and friends who have limited visibility, we like to provide a brief self-description. I was going to say self-destruction. Sometimes I feel like that up here. Brief self-description of our speakers. So I have long brown hair, I'm fair-complected, and today I'm wearing a green vest in honor of St. Patrick's Day, my favorite holiday, a gray sweater with some colorful lines, and brand new white shoes, because they were on sale at Costco for $19.97, which when you see shoes for under $20, it's like, yes. Our guest speaker this morning is Reverend Carol McKinley. Reverend Carol speaks here frequently and has been very supportive of KUF for many years. She comes to us from Olympia. Can you hear me? She comes to us from Olympia, where she is an affiliated community minister at the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We strive to be an inclusive community. If you're visiting this morning, please participate as you feel welcome or comfortable. You're also invited to stay and meet people during coffee hour. If you're attending online today, welcome. You can say hello in the chat. And if you want to pull out your little announcements in your order of service folder, something exciting that's going on today is Adult RE. It takes place at 11:45, and Stephen Burlingame is speaking to us about cuts to USAID, so it's something that you may want to participate in. For more announcements about Kitsap UU Fellowship activities, please see our weekly email newsletter, The Candle, and be sure to scroll down all the way because there are many announcements at the bottom that are important too, like cookies and conversation happening on March 20th at 6:30 p.m. in case you want to get to know people at KUF better. Let's now take a moment to silence our electronic devices that you don't need to monitor during this time together. And we're going to take some centering breaths. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Carol McKinley, and I use she, her pronouns. I have white hair. I wear glasses that are kind of in a purplish frame, and I have a dark green jacket with my stole that contains images of many of the plants we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Our opening words are from the Reverend Ashley Horan. Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. There are many routes toward liberation, toward freedom, but the abundance of options does not absolve us of the responsibility of acting. Another world is possible, and today let us come together and worship together.
We welcome Carol Storm to come up and light our chalice. Carol has belonged to 3 UU fellowships, 2 in Washington and 1 in Oregon. And she says, looking for my people is easy when there is a UU fellowship within 20 miles. For me, UU fellowships are welcoming and feel like home. Let us light our chalices together with these words adapted from those of the Reverend Lori Stevens. With this chalice, may we kindle the flame of our attention. Like a comforting candle, flickering yet steady, may our attention be befriended, directed, and sustained for the betterment of all humankind. Please join me in the spoken affirmation. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. Us. Now please rise and body your spirit to join in singing hymn number 1040 in the Teal hymnal.
Hush, hush, somebody's coming. calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room. Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room. Soon one morning, death come creeping in my room. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Good morning, everyone. The theme this month is paying attention. Paying attention means noticing when things aren't fair and choosing not to look away. On International Women's Day, we remember women who helped the world pay attention. Pay attention to inequality and those who worked to change it. Today's story is about Lucy Stone, a Unitarian ancestor who noticed that women were treated differently from men and decided that unfairness didn't have to stay that way. She didn't ignore that unfairness or assume it couldn't be changed. Instead, she paid attention, asked hard questions, and used her voice to work for justice, not just for women, but for all people. Once, in a small town in Massachusetts, there was a girl named Lucy Stone. Even as a child, Lucy was very good at paying attention. She noticed things other people accepted without question. She noticed that boys were treated one way and girls another, Men had more choices, more power, and more voice. And women were expected to stay quiet. Lucy didn't think that was fair. She made a promise to herself, I will work to change this. Lucy wanted to go to college, which was unusual for women at that time. But she didn't just want an education. She wanted to learn Greek and Hebrew so she could read the Bible in its original languages. Lucy had heard people say that God wanted women to be less than men, and she wanted to decide for herself whether that was really true. In 1847, Lucy graduated from Oberlin College, becoming the first woman from Massachusetts to earn a college degree. And she didn't stop there. Lucy used her voice. She traveled across the country giving speeches, sometimes to crowds that didn't want to hear a woman speak at all. She spoke out for women's rights and for the end of slavery. She believing deeply that freedom and equality belonged to everyone. In 1850, Lucy helped organize the first National Women's Rights Convention. Now, for those of you who are historians like I am, that wasn't Seneca Falls. Seneca Falls was the first convention, but it wasn't the first national convention. Anyway, so I just got to give that in. Seneca Falls was 2 years early where they wrote the Declaration of Sentiments for Women, but okay. Back to the story. Women and men gathered together to name the unfairness they saw and imagine something better. Lucy married a man named Henry Blackwell. He shared her beliefs in equality. You might remember a while ago I told a story about his sister Elizabeth Blackwell, who went on to become the first woman doctor in the United States. Lucy kept her own name after marriage, which at that time was a bold choice to make because women were expected to take their husband's name. It wasn't a choice. During the Civil War, Lucy continued paying attention to injustice. She worked with others to try to end slavery forever. After the war, she helped form groups that worked for voting rights for everyone, no matter their race or gender. When some activists decided to focus on only one group at a time, Lucy stayed committed to the idea that justice should include everyone. Later in her life, Lucy helped start a newspaper called Woman's Journal. Through its pages, she continued to speak up, organize, and remind people to pay attention to inequality whenever it appeared. Lucy Stone lived her entire life believing that noticing unfairness and refusing to ignore it was powerful. And because she paid attention, generations who followed gained rights and opportunities she could only dream of. This story reminds us that noticing inequality is the first step toward changing it, and that one person's attention and courage can help open doors for many others. Lucy Stone paid attention to the unfair rules of her time, rules that said women should be silent, powerless, and unequal. Instead of accepting those rules, she spoke up, organized others, and worked her whole life for equality.
Thank you, Melinda. As a religious community, together we can do the work of many. By sharing in the sacred act of giving, we transform gratitude into generosity towards our mission. One way that our mission inspires us to act on our shared UU values is to share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Our charitable giving recipient for the month of March is Kitsap Black Student Union. Kitsap Black Student Union provides a safe space to celebrate culture and empower youth leadership. If you would like your offering to go to this month's charitable giving recipient, please use the envelope from inside your order of service. And if you need an envelope, please raise your hand and the ushers will bring one to you. If you'd like your offering to go to KUUF, please put it directly in the basket. Instructions on ways to make your gift, including a QR code, will be on the screen. And let there be an offering to strengthen and sustain our beloved community with a gift of music from Lucia Smith and our choir. And if you feel so called to join in when the choir starts to sing, please do so.
"25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew I should that the world was made up of this brotherhood of man, for whatever that means. And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head, and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I try, oh my God, do I try? I try all the time in this institution, and I pray, oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for a revolution. And so I cry sometimes when I'm lying in bed just to get it all out what's in my head, and I am feeling a little peculiar. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high and I scream from the top of my lungs, what's going on? Yeah, and I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I say, hey, what's going on? And I say, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. 25 years and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination.
That was a great arrangement. I enjoyed that. That was one of the first CDs I ever bought from a CD subscription service for, I think, $29.99. Please rise and body or spirit to join me in singing our children up to their classes. The words for May You Go With Joy will appear on your screens. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows are lessened. We are going to start out with a concern that was actually from last week from Bunny Starika. The good news is that Devin is now recovered and doing well, but going back a week, Bunny said they are joyful that Devin is home after a 3-night stint in Marybridge Children's Hospital with pneumonia as a complication of RSV in the past week. We're all still at home recovering, but very grateful for modern medicine and hopeful that he will continue to make forward progress towards full recovery now that he's home. He was very vocal last night, so I think he's doing a lot better. The first joy is from Ed Luby, who says, my bedside clock is actually showing the right time again. Yay. I'm glad someone else does that too. Next, from Josh and Sam Glines. Their joy is that last Saturday they got married. And they're very excited to be back at KUUF after a honeymoon.
Best wishes.
Best wishes, yes. This is from Anonymous. Dana Miller has a birthday. Where is Dana? Happy birthday. The next joy is from Michelle Louvian, who says that in the year that I have been a member of KUUF, I feel my life has meaning again. I feel empowered to help in my community, and I am healthier physically and mentally. Yay. Is that it? Oh, that's it. I will add one in. The stewardship dinner last night, I think, was an amazing success. It was so fun. All the performances were amazing, and it was just all in all a great time. And we met our goal, so yay. And then we light one last candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share. Please join me in a moment of prayer or intention. In the spirit of community in which we find strength and common purpose, we share our joys, our sorrows, our hopes and dreams. We have turned our minds and hearts toward one another in trust, giving love, seeking comfort, and celebrating together. We are part of the web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. In all the moments of our lives, for those loved ones and events shared this morning, and for those we yet hold in the silence of our hearts, we are truly grateful for the love and support of this beloved community. May the spirit of life and love bring peace to us all. Amen, and blessed be. Please remain seated as we sing hymn number 123 in our gray hymnal. The words will appear on your screen. Our next reading comes from Sylvia Bornstein. She's an author, psychotherapist, and Buddhist teacher. She writes, "Imagine how our lives might be if everyone had even a bit more of the wisdom that comes from seeing clearly. Suppose people everywhere simultaneously stopped what they were doing and paid attention for only as long as it took to recognize their shared humanity. Surely the heartbreak of the world's pain, visible to all, would convert everyone to kindness."
Our second reading is from the writer James Baldwin, always that writer who spoke and noticed justice. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it is faced. Let's pause now for a moment of reflection, followed by our post-reflection music. Once again, many thanks to the choir. Music does so much to enhance our worship services. We're very lucky to have such a wonderful choir director, and musician, Brian. In her poem, Why I Wake Early, Mary Oliver writes, "Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness and kindness." Now, I'm sure we Unitarian Universalists are not the only ones who deeply appreciate Mary Oliver's poetry, but we may be unique among religious traditions in considering her writing akin to Holy Scripture. I feel that one reason is that in addition to reflecting her love for the natural world near her home on Cape Cod, her poetry reflects the philosophy of the 19th century Unitarian transcendentalists who taught that the sacred is found in nature. I've always appreciated, kind of laughed at the observation by Margaret Fuller, who was part of Ralph Waldo Emerson's transcendentalist circle, who said she found more of the sacred by looking over the top of church steeples and discovering it in nature than she ever found within the walls of a church. Now, like Margaret Fuller, Mary Oliver too feels that the holy can be experienced more fully when walking among the trees, watching the fox moving gracefully through the grass, admiring the tulips, or even contemplating the cricket resting under a rose bush. Walk slowly, says Oliver, and bow often to the many ways we are interconnected to all of life. Her poem sometimes succinctly states her philosophy. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Pay attention by deliberately observing details that are often overlooked. Be astonished by cultivating wonder at the beauty and uniqueness in every part of life. Then talk about it. Share those experiences as a way of connecting with others. Oliver believes that engaging with the world in all its manifestations is not only aesthetically rewarding, it is our ethical duty. She observes how important it is to walk along, not in haste, but slowly, looking at everything and calling out, yes, no, to pay attention. That is our endless and proper work. Oliver's words serve as a reminder that in this noisy world of urgency, distraction, the next political crisis, or bit of celebrity gossip, paying attention can be a radical act. Each one of us can perform a radical act by noticing and by asking, what is really happening here? As we gather in this sanctuary on a Sunday morning, when the world around us seems to be in turmoil, what do we need to notice? Beauty of nature, relationships, meaningful connections, truth, and justice. And even as we necessarily pay attention to those world events, Our task must be also to notice beauty, people, moral values, eternal truths that have been the foundation of all religious traditions for millennia. And sometimes we need to be reminded that Sunday morning is not the only time to honor those values, but that every day calls us to hold up those values as we navigate the complexity of life in this sometimes troubling world. To notice how those moral values have inspired those who have worked and those who continue working to make this a more inclusive, a more loving and peaceful world for all persons and for all life on this planet we share. Today, March 8th, as we heard in Melinda's story earlier, is International Women's Day, a day to commemorate efforts to fully achieve equality and liberation for women around the world. This day is part of the United States Women's History Month, which is designated in 1987 to honor the achievements of women in this country, as well as the challenges that remain before us. The first International Women's Day was in 1909 and was celebrated with a march recognizing the achievements of women in labor movements in Europe and North America. It highlighted the need for equal rights and equal pay for women in the workforce, in all those factories, manufacturing plants, in offices and domestic service. And of course, that international commemoration was inspired and supported by suffragists in the United States whose campaign for the right to vote had begun more than 50 years earlier. Now, of course, thousands of women and men were involved in the ultimately successful suffrage movement. But the person most commonly associated with the women's voting right was Susan B. Anthony, along with Lucy Stone, whose story you heard in the Story for All Ages earlier. Anthony was born also in Massachusetts, like Lucy Stone. She was born in 1820, and she wasn't a Unitarian. She was born into a family of deeply religious Quakers, and she was, throughout her life, deeply influenced by their Quaker values of equality, moral responsibility, and social justice. And of course, like Lucy Stone, those values inspired and sustained her throughout her life. Now, Anthony was gifted in many ways. She began to read at age 3, and her education continued in Quaker schools, where the children's lessons there emphasized that tradition's commitment to justice and equality. And it was during those school years that Anthony developed organizational skills for the work she was to do throughout her life. Now, although today we primarily associate Anthony with women's rights and the suffrage movement, she was involved, just like Lucy Stone, in many justice issues: abolition of slavery, temperance, educational equality, and rights of workers. She was guided by Quaker moral and spiritual values, and she paid attention to the world in which she lived and saw the many ways in which women, persons who did not own property, people of color, were excluded from society and from community decisions that affected their lives. Why, she asked, why is not everyone treated fairly? She saw the disparity between the values expressed in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the reality lived by many of her neighbors. And Anthony went on to ask, if those documents promise inherent rights, why are those rights not for everyone? But her questions did not stop there. She asked, how can I make a difference? She was supported by her family and her Quaker community, and she responded by dedicating the rest of her life to work for equality for Black people, for workers, for women and children. And for Anthony, this is what it meant to live her faith. Her work for equality was not only social or political, it was a moral imperative that became her sacred practice. And of course, that work put her into conflict with the laws of her time, laws that most people had accepted without question. After all, they said, it was just the way things are done. But Anthony noticed, and then she went on to act. When she challenged a law that said that as a woman she could not vote, she was paying attention to an injustice that society accepted as normal. 4 days before the election, the presidential election of 1872, she went to a voter registration office in Rochester, New York, and she demanded to be added to the list of eligible voters. The election official told her she could not be registered as only male citizens could vote. But she argued that the right to vote was included in the 14th Amendment, which gives the rights of citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States. The young official was rather flustered, and he was unable to really counter Anthony's argument, so he went ahead and accepted her registration. Then a couple of days later, she, 3 of her sisters, and some other women went to the polls and cast their ballots in the presidential race. But Anthony was singled out, arrested, and charged with illegal voting. At her trial, she ignored the judge's order to stop talking. No doubt that was the 19th century version of, lady, sit down and shut up. And she went on to loudly condemn the high-handed outrage, these are her words, the high-handed outrage upon my citizens' rights. You have trampled underfoot every vital principle of our government. My natural rights, my civil rights, my political rights, my judicial rights are all alike ignored. The judge wasn't very sympathetic. He directed the jury without deliberation to deliver a guilty verdict, and then he fined her $100. Anthony refused to pay, and she never did pay. Then she left the courtroom to continue her campaign for women's suffrage. Now, although she did not live to see the ratification of the 19th Amendment, her efforts, along with those of many others, including Lucy Stone, were pivotal to women's enfranchisement. So even as we honor Susan B. Anthony and other suffragists during Women's History Month, let us not make the mistake of thinking such efforts for true equality only lie in the past. They are simply reminders that we too must honor this faith's traditions, values of equality and fairness, values common to most faiths, even as we are pummeled by news of autocratic decisions that contradict and denigrate those values. That in the face of hate and demonizing of those who challenge unjust and illegal decisions, each one of us has a moral obligation to challenge and resist and continue to be visible and vocal advocates for freedom and compassion. It is our moral imperative to pay attention to the wrongs perpetrated upon our neighbors, in our communities, and in the world. The wrongs perpetrated against this planet. This is not a casual obligation, noticing injustice, then responding. It is how we, as people of faith, are asked to live moral lives. Paying attention is deeply connected to love, justice, spirituality, and community. It doesn't have to be a courtroom challenging an unjust law as Anthony did more than a century ago, and that people are doing today. Paying attention happens everywhere in our daily lives. It can be as common as noticing the person coming into this church this morning, balancing a vase of flowers for the morning service while getting out of his car, and then offering a hand. Or giving a call to someone you notice has not been at a Sunday service recently. It might be noticing a small group holding signs during a regular protest on the Manette Bridge, then parking your car and joining them. Paying attention can be noticing needs as close as our neighborhoods, as well as what is amiss in our nation and in the world. Noticing and then responding is one of the purest forms of love. When we listen deeply to a friend in pain, when we notice changes in someone's mood, when we put down our phones to truly see each other, we are saying without words, "You matter." Mary Oliver's poetry has taught us so much about how noticing the small things in our backyards or during a walk on the beach can remind us to open our eyes and our hearts to the wonder and the needs of this world. She once wrote that paying attention is our endless and proper work, not achievement, not perfection, not certainty, but attention in all our actions. And to pay attention truly means noticing the person who is speaking instead of preparing our reply. And that's really hard. Recognizing suffering instead of looking away. Seeing beauty where we might otherwise rush past it. Asking, what is really happening here? Our attention is the beginning of compassion. It is how we practice our values. It is how we practice our faith. So even as we honor Susan B. Anthony's work during Women's History Month, we today should follow her example as we pay attention to today's moral wrongs and ask, how can I make a difference? After all, justice movements begin when someone like Anthony notices what others have normalized. And it is as true today as it was in her day. To ignore injustice is easy. To notice it is uncomfortable. And to keep noticing it is courageous. Paying attention, taking risks, disrupt complacency. It means living intentionally and being alive in the deepest sense. It is as true today as it was in the 19th century, and what we pay attention to shapes who we will become. I know I saw thousands of people noticing injustice, of bringing federal forces into Minneapolis neighborhoods in January. I saw and noticed those who were responded by marching, protesting, taking care of each other. I noticed the death of 2 Minnesota residents who were living intentionally by joining their community to protest the federal occupation. And I saw hundreds of interfaith clergy colleagues traveling to that city to affirm their faith's values in equity, compassion, and justice. I witnessed people noticing, then responding to injustice. And their acts were not passive. They were providing an active presence. And that is what each one of us is called to do. To be an active presence by paying attention to the harm suffered by other people and by this earth. And this is indeed what it means to live our faith. It is love made visible. It is justice beginning, and it is spiritually embodied. It is, as the philosopher Cornel West reminds us, what love looks like in public. And during this time of war and heightened anxiety for this world and all its people, let us be public in our love for justice, our care for each other. Let us be reminded that in the midst of chaos and conflict in this nation and beyond, this community, this fellowship provides a place where our values of equality, interconnection, and love are honored. A place where we pay attention to each other and to the needs of this world that we are sharing. I invite you now just to take a moment to join me in a brief practice that may inspire us to deeper awareness. So as you settle into your chair, get comfortable, you are invited to close your eyes if you would like. As we begin, first, pay attention to breath. Breathe in slowly and deeply, then breathe out slowly. Next, pay attention to another person. Fully sense the presence of the individual next to you. Then pay attention to the world. Notice one injustice. Notice one beauty. Hold both. And now, let us hold our attention for just a moment of silence. My friends, as we prepare to end this worship service and move into the day ahead, let us remember that paying attention, as Mary Oliver reminds us, is our endless and our proper work. What we pay attention to shapes who we become. May we have the courage to notice. May we have the patience to stay present. And may our attention help build a more compassionate and connected world. Amen. And so may it be. Stand as you are willing and able as we sing our closing hymn, Building a New Way, number 1017 in the teal hymnal and on the screen. As you leave this space this morning, made sacred by our presence, may you practice the art of truly noticing yourself with honesty, others with compassion, and the world with clear eyes. Remember that attention is love made deliberate. So go with courage to look closely, to stay present, to let what you witness reshape you as well as the world. Amen, and so may it be. Thank you, Carol.